What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk about the newest Netflix original movie. And to be quite honest, I didn't know anything about this before I went in to watch it. All I saw beforehand was the poster and like the release information about it, but I didn't even know the plot of this movie before I went in to watch it. And I was hoping that it would be enjoyable. And the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Don't Move. Don't Move is directed by Brian Netto and Adam Schindler. A grieving woman in a secluded forest encounters a killer who injects her with a paralytic drug. As her body shuts down, her fight for survival begins. So, like I said, I went into this movie not really knowing anything about it at all. And if I had one word to describe this movie, it would be fine. It's perfectly serviceable. It has some really enjoyable moments. I thought the performances were really great. The problem is, it's not really doing anything all that new or interesting. And there's a lot of scenes in the movie that just feel very repetitive and uninteresting, which causes a lot of the runtime to be bloated. But I do like what the movie is going for as a whole, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about it today. So, at the beginning of the film, we are introduced to Iris, who we see lying in bed at the beginning of the movie with presumably her husband, and she gets up, gets the keys to her car, and drives out into the middle of the woods in the mountains. And she drives out there, and we learn early on that her and her husband have lost their son in a very tragic accident, and she is going back to the location where this happens, essentially to take her own life. And so she goes out there, and while she's thinking about it, Richard appears, and Richard comes up to her and starts having a conversation with her, and eventually he pretty much convinces her not to jump, and she sort of in a roundabout way thanks him, and the two of them start walking back down the mountain together, and she goes to get into her car and realizes that he's parked really close to her, so she can't get her door open. And he walks around and he's like, hey, let me get the car out of the way, whatever. And you can tell he's acting a little bit strange, and he tases her and throws her in the back seat of his car. And when she wakes up, he tells her that he has injected her with this drug that within, I think, 25 or 30 minutes will deem her completely paralyzed for an hour. And he says he's going to take her to this cabin in the middle of the woods, and they're going to have a great weekend together. And the entirety of the film is Iris's character trying to fight back and survive Richard before this drug takes over her body. So like I said, I thought this movie was perfectly fine. It's not really doing anything super new or inventive, but I think it succeeds in a lot of ways. For starters, I think both of the lead performances here are really great. Kelsey Asbille, who plays Iris, does a really fantastic job. For a lot of this movie, she's paralyzed, and so she can't speak and she can't do much, but she's very expressive with her eyes and the limited movement that she has. And I think she does a really great job. Whenever you take on a role like this, it's asking a lot of an actor to like not have a ton of dialogue and to have to perform solely with your body. I did a review recently of the film Azrael, starring Samara Weaving, where she did not have a line of dialogue the entire movie. And that's asking a lot from an actor, and I think she does a really nice job here. Finn Wittrock, who plays Richard, I was familiar with him from American Horror Story. I already knew that he plays creepy very well, and he does a nice job here. He has a lot of moments where he interacts with characters and he has to shift to like the seemingly normal nice guy back into psychopath, and I think that he's just really well casted for this type of role, and he has a lot of really great moments in the film. The cinematography here is nice. They do a really great job creating an immersive environment. This is obviously a very isolated scenario. I like the way that the cinematographer hangs on shots where our character is like, I'm trapped with this person in the middle of nowhere. Am I going to be able to survive? The way, like, when she's paralyzed, that the camera will linger on people that could come and save her if only she had the ability to speak up. And I think the patient cinematography here is one of the film's better aspects because it helps create that tension for you as a viewer. And I like that a lot about the movie. And I think what it does the best is just create that feeling of hopelessness, because you're constantly as a viewer like, okay, if I had my full bodily functions, I could do this, that, and the other. But the reality of the situation is you can't. You're not able to. This drug completely takes over. And as she starts to gain like limited motor skills back, she tries to do things. And I think that's where the movie really succeeds. The film also does a lot trying to build up the tragic backstory of our lead character losing her son, and then trying to dive a little bit into Richard's backstory, which I thought was interesting when the film focused on it, but you don't get a whole lot there. I feel like one of my qualms with the movie, his character does not have a lot of traits, which you don't necessarily need that in this type of a movie, but because so much of it is repetitive sequences of like a character showing up, questioning his intentions, and then moving on, I feel like if we got a little bit more depth into his character, that it would have been a much more interesting watch. And I think that's why this movie is kind of run of the mill for me, is it's repetitive. I feel like the scenes in this movie, it's just the same thing again and again, of like a person stumbling upon them, Richard's character trying to create a story for himself, and then moving on to the next character. And we get that for about the whole middle portion. There's one elongated portion in the middle with this older gentleman that I thought was really well done. I thought the way that it built tension was really great. But after that, the movie, you've seen it before. These types of movies with like a runaway or someone being kidnapped, this type of thing has been done again and again. And I think what would have made this movie special is to kind of turn it on its head and do something incredibly unexpected, but it just did more of the same. And that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I think that the third act and how the movie closes, it works well when it comes to the lead character's story and how she's feeling emotionally. But I guess if there's one thing I would say about this film, I just wanted more. I just kept thinking like there's so many things you could do to this movie to make it something incredibly special, but instead it was just enjoyable. And I would say it's definitely a Netflix film that's worth checking out. I don't think it's going to blow you away by any means, but I do think you'll have a good time if you watch it. So have you seen Don't Move? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was really entertaining. I don't think it's perfect by any means. It definitely has a lot of problems, but I was pleasantly surprised. As always, if you can like the video, subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.